Hey everyone, I promise I'm not filming all these videos to make you guys jealous, well maybe just a little bit. Anyway, I wanted to talk about today's interview. Today's interview is with Isra. Isra is an architect, and not just any architect, she works on some really interesting projects and works mainly with multifamily, and it's a choice that she makes, and she talks about why she made that choice and some things that architects think of. I was amazed by what actually goes into designing a project. So it was a really cool interview, something I haven't heard too often to hear from an architect's point of view. So please stick around. She has some really cool stuff at the end as well if you guys want to stick around for that. And as always, please like and subscribe. Cheers. Welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to choke slam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler, and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have Isra. Hey Isra, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you? Thank you for having me on your nice show.
You're more than welcome. We're very happy to have you. And just wanted to check, did I pronounce it correct? I forgot to ask you before. Is that a good pronunciation?
Perfect. Yeah, Isra. Perfect.
Isra. Okay, great. Now, Isra, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing? And yeah, just tell us about yourself so we get to know you.
Yeah, well, I'm a licensed architect, a professor at Boston Architectural College, and I'm also a mom and a wife. My focus for the last 15 years was on multifamily projects and mixed use. I've done tons of stuff like that. Done dormitories, apartments, complexes that had a mix of villas, townhouses, apartment buildings, retail, and my firm is Trivek Architects. I recently started my firm. It hasn't been so long. So for the past 15 years, I was doing the job for other people. Now the challenge is to get the job and do the job. Probably I'll get some help.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on starting your own company. That's a big step, and obviously we wish you nothing but the biggest success. So if we back up a little bit, what made you want to be an architect? What made you go, because I'm sure someone as intelligent as you had a lot of options. What made you decide to go with that?
Yeah, usually the answer for that would be I was playing with Legos, and I made houses and I loved it, and I decided at the age of 10 I decided to become an architect. I knew I'm gonna become an architect, but that's not my story. That wasn't my story. At 18, my mom threw me. She said, "Just try it." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it, but I'm not gonna like it." And then I was madly in love, I would say, with the architectural field from day one. All these, it's stimulating.
And that's because you just like designing stuff. You like seeing how it looks, and
it's a mix. It's very challenging because it's a mix of knowledge, science, mathematics, imagination, coming up, getting things done, and getting it mature to a degree, and details. And I'm more of a big picture person, but you have to have an idea, a big picture, and then get into details and the details of the details. And it takes a lot, years and years to get to that maturity of design. I was just minutes ago, I was looking at one of we have a portfolio review for a student, and that student did have a talent, a very high taste, but unfortunately he's the progression from research and science into an actual building is missing. He have the imagination, he has the idea, but that progression into getting, I would say it's almost like an orchestra, a maestro,
Mm-hmm.
a maestro who has to conduct all these fields. Like you have structural engineers, you have to have knowledge, HVAC, civil engineering, surveys, everything. You have to pay attention to all these details, and the architect is the maestro for all that. And on the other side, they have to have imagination and pay attention to aesthetics, sustainability, have to imagine how people are going to in these places, how it's going to affect the relationships with your neighbors, with your family. There's research shows if you change the sequence of rooms, it affected the relationship of the family members and its personality in the future. So my I don't want to talk too much, but
No, please keep going. This is fascinating. Keep going.
yeah, my research was focused on improving people's health and mental health through design. And we spend as a culture right now, we spend so much money on diet and supplements and going to the gym, but we never pay attention to the places we're living in. There's something called sick building syndrome. If there is some mold or fungi or some building material that have off-gassing, it can cause illnesses and affect our overall health. And people go to the doctor and complain about symptoms just that looks like the flu, and the doctor told you're imagining things, but in fact the environment can cause that. These are all allergies, and we can easily treat that with proper ventilation, proper HVAC systems. There's also research shows that the amount of natural light in your living areas would affect our mental health and students' performance in exams. If their schools have enough natural light, they perform much better. There was significant increase in their performance. So yeah, it's fascinating, and it's in the same time, it's heartbreaking that all this is undervalued in our culture.
Absolutely. And
yeah.
Thanks for sharing all that, because even though I'm in real estate and I study this stuff all day and I talk to people all day about it, I understand the basis of what an architect does, but I didn't realize that so much went into it, that you know, as you explain it, it makes perfect sense. It makes absolute perfect sense that you would have to learn and understand all those components of a building and how everything works together, you know, how close you are to your neighbors, or the layout of the room, and how the HVAC system works, and so on and so on. But you never think of it. I just, you know, when I think of an architect, I think of supremely talented people that just simply do drawings, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't people think disrespectful, and I'm very sorry that I even thought that.
Yeah, make pretty pictures. That what people think. They make pretty pictures.
I will never ever think that again. But you guys are on a completely different level, and I think that's absolutely fascinating to hear, like how you put it together. So maybe that's a good subject to kind of dive in a little bit more. Maybe talk a little bit more about what the process is of being an architect. You talked a little bit about what you look for, but when you're coming up with a design, talk about all the things that you consider and what kind of considerations you have to have for those things.
Oh, so the process of becoming an architect, or the process of the progression of a project?
Sorry, the project. Yeah.
A project. Yeah, because the process of becoming an architect is brutal. It's very painful. We'll talk about it some other time, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
So to start with a project, you need surveys. You need to know, and especially we need to know what's down there, if there's there are boulders, if there's sometimes we can never know, even if the client, of course, the owner is going to hire a surveyor and pay for it. But sometimes they come up with surveys and then there are unexpected things. It's normally that's going to show up when they're digging in and see what's going on. For me as an architect, I would want to see how the sun is coming, how it's progressing through the site. What about the shade that's coming from the neighbors, or there are trees that are putting shade, how much sun they're getting, things like that. South, I do noise analysis. What are the noise levels there? Would think about demographics. Mm-hmm. What are how traffic is going to affect the project? How am I affecting the traffic in a project? How about the rain levels, water levels, temperature? What kind of temperature in that area would be? Because there's climate and there's microclimate. I know the climate of Boston, but I need to look at the microclimate of, let's say, North Shore or Peabody or whatever my house is. So that would be the studies, and then I would talk with the client and the owner, and I want to know what they're thinking. What is their budget? Number one. What do they want? What do they want to do? What's their vision? If a client, they probably have a client owner requirements, requirements, and that's something more specific, like probably the owner wants 90% of the spaces have 50% of daylight.
Okay.
And that would be like very want it to be homogeneous, not too much glare, because again, glare is going to affect people's health, especially if there are computers and people who are reading or studying or offices. So we come up with all the requirements, what the owner wants, how many people they're expecting, and then I look into codes. City, there are zoning codes. I have to look how much setbacks, what's the height, and there are also, again, there are other codes, safety codes. We call it the International Building Code. This is for the people's safety in case of fire or anything else, especially fire. So we have to make sure that there are enough egresses for people to run out from the building. And then there are fire separations in the roof, through the building, all that. So right now, when I start looking at codes, the overall thing is going to how big the building is, how much I'm allowed, and then I start to think about the structural material of the building, what the code lets me do with this area. If I want to make it bigger, according to the client's wish, I have to probably pick a structure that is metal instead of wood. And then we start to do little bubble diagrams, thinking about the how people are circulation, adjacencies of the spaces. As I mentioned in the beginning, the adjacencies of these, or the progression of these spaces, going to affect people's life and proximity, privacy, all these, what's going to be open to which side of, like, is it going to be north, south? That's called programming. And then these bubbles will turn into rooms or spaces. And then I start thinking, now this is called design development. After the concept is done, the next phase is called, this is called schematic design, everything I've been talking about now. Now, design development, I start thinking about my structures and the system, HVAC systems, structures, all kind of engineering should be put together. I start to make decisions with the client and the engineers. Everyone should be on the table, make these decisions together. and then we go into the detail. Now these ideas or designs will turn into an instruction book. We call it CDs, construction documents. These are legal documents. They're going to the builder, who's going to follow these instructions specifically. And if they have questions, of course, they can ask us. And we will go back and forth with them during the construction period to administer that they're following these instructions precisely. And of course, with the instruction document books or set, you've seen them, maybe the big papers, there is a specification book that would tell everything about what kind of material that's going into each building component.
Wow, that's really,
and then,
really interesting.
Yeah, if you want me to go through the details of construction administration period, that would probably take a couple of hours.
We'll save that for another time, but that's really interesting. I don't think I'll ever be able to sit in a building or be in a building and look at it the same way again, because now I'm always going to be fascinated by the design and how people decided. Like, even just sitting in my house now, I'm going to be wondering how they came up with a design. Did they obviously they took in the light and the sunlight into consideration, how much sunlight there is, south or north facing, and yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. So
yeah, and all the treatments to make the sun not glary and enough sun. And then there are things called light shelves. So it distracts the light, goes up to the ceiling, it comes back again, and it's very beautiful, homogeneous. You get light, and you get very nice light in the room. Or things that we call fins that will, if you have like Western facade fins, that will break it. So depending on each facade, we use different treatment.
Very, very interesting. Really is so fascinating to me. So then you mentioned there that you'll pass over the instructions and you'll go back and forth with the builders. How involved will you be in the building process? Will you visit the site once a month, not at all, or every?
Depending. Yep, that's a great question. Depending on the complexity of the project, some projects require engineer that would live on the project. They would come every day from like 8 hours. Some project requires once a month just to make sure how much they progress and bring my drawings and make sure that they're doing the right thing. Some projects, and it's there in the contract, and it has to be decided at the beginning in the contract, and the people are, architects are paid accordingly. So some people do once a week or once a month, and then if the project is complex, then there's someone who's called a resident engineer who's going to live there.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Now, I think you mentioned beforehand that your main focus is on building apartment complexes, right? And kind of mixed use. And that was a choice you made. Why was that? I think it would be interesting for everyone to hear why you chose that and why you like that.
Well, the idea was at the beginning in my career, I got exposed to these kinds of projects, and especially I worked in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and there were lots of these kinds of projects. That was 2010, 2011, and then when I was studying my master's, I was also living I was in Boston and there in Abu Dhabi, commuting back and forth. My parents in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. That's a small, beautiful coastal city that's very relaxed and touristy. But I wanted people who are in big cities to feel more relaxed or reduce the stress of traffic. And I was thinking, like, eventually there won't be enough land for single family houses. And one day or another, all of us are going to probably live in apartments or in the city where the cities are going to expand. my idea was how to bring the comfort of a single family house to the apartment building, how to give people the privacy and the proximity to the workplace, to the shops, to everything we like in the city, and proximity to our neighbors, but at the same time, we have enough privacy, the same privacy that a single family house would cause. I don't want so much noise. I don't want to bump into my neighbor every morning and where I'm upset and they're upset, and I want my own entry. I want my own corridor, my own stair, my probably little backyard. So it would be great. And I want a walking area, biking area. So that's when I started to study about happy communities, happy cities. And there's a book called Happy Cities. It's an amazing book by Charles Montgomery, and more books about what the effects of privacy. People were more hostile when they lacked the privacy in dormitories, but when they gave them certain places where they don't have to bump into each other every day, every time they're going to get a snack or something, they had better friendship. They loved each other. They did not have lots of conflicts. So I started studying more and more, and of course I also focused on helping people move more and providing biking areas, walking areas. I picked a very unique spot in Alewife near a conservatory where people go bird watching and things like that. So, and I worked on the landscape and all that. And if you see the picture behind me, that's one of the pictures from my projects, and you can see people, all these ramps where people can walk in the summer and when spring, and even can bike because they're sloped, and even people who have disability can use these ramps to get to their apartments. And there's also diversity of apartments, so that it would take different group ages, different demographics into the account. So we're creating diversity in the city, so people it will help the economy. Also worked on providing parking for people from outside, not just a resident. When people leave in the morning, and there's a T line, a subway there, so people can just park there in the parking underground, and use the T and take back their cars after work hours. So that would reduce the problems with traffic in that area, the congestion that used to be.
Very cool.
I think that's enough about my research.
No, this is really interesting, because my main focus is multifamily and apartment investing. So for me, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, the privacy of my tenants, and the buildings I have are already built, but I'm trying to think if there's any other way that I can maybe increase their privacy and increase the happiness. A happy tenant is a good one, right?
Exactly.
It needs a paying tenant. So, the happier the tenant, the happier I am, I guess. So maybe talk a little bit about what considerations you have for privacy, how you do that, how you come up with designs, and maybe there might be something in there that we as apartment owners can do to help our tenants. There might be something that sparks some light bulbs for us.
Well, on a smaller level, you can control, let's say, noise with there are ways to like resilient channels, specification of different types of walls. I don't want to go too technical. Mm-hmm. And then just with the programming of the design, make sure that probably staggering the doors and have like only 2 apartments facing each other, and then the lobby would be nicely positioned that only 4 apartments probably going to share, the not too much, you don't need long corridors that would waste the waste space and square footage, and like you have repetitive doors, and then probably have, if you see in the drawing, I have tons of sketches I can show you, but I don't think it's the right time for that. Visual screens, so people can enjoy sitting in their balcony without being seen by their, also those sort of things.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think, when you do live in an apartment, it's a denser area, and running into you might not always like your neighbor, so that becomes a challenge. So the more privacy you can kind of create, I think it's better, and it creates that single family feel. I think if you can kind of create that in an apartment complex, I think that's great as well.
You want proximity, so children have time, and safety, of course. That's so people from outside don't come, and this is something we can create in apartment or probably townhouses. You provide spaces for people to play, and strangers can't come in, and that's also proximity, not just privacy. There are times where people can mingle and children can play, like the olden days when probably we were children. We used to play with our neighbors, and of course provide safety. And I don't know if this design shows, but there are certain places people can come to it from outside. They're for retail, like there's Starbucks, Panera Bread, for such a large complex, residential complex, but those visitors cannot enter into a residential area. So that's another layer of privacy. So you have public, semi-public, and then very private.
I've never heard of that before, but it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a very interesting concept that, like you said, only the residents can go into a certain area. So it keeps the amount of people that's in that area to a minimum, and
very safe.
Yeah. Very interesting. Now, I think you said it's been 15 years since you've been in the business of designing these type of buildings. What kind of progression have you seen in the multifamily? What's sort of the differences you've seen in that time, and the evolution of apartment complexes, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's not that fast, but I'm liking the high end more now that here in Boston it's becoming very popular. Probably in New York you'd see very simple designs, beautiful colors, beautiful material that's being used. But in terms of design, I think that the becoming very popular also here.
The what? Sorry, you broke up for a second.
Townhouses.
Okay.
Townhouses, high-end townhouses, apartments. They're becoming more, nice and clean and high-end, and rather than in the 80s, there were probably, I don't know, they're still using I know they're type A and type B, and I think they're using better material these days.
Okay.
There are more options of material. The building material market is exploding every day. It's very hard to catch up with building material and finishes. And
yeah, you have to. That's something else. I'm sure you have to keep up to date with all the development in materials and technology.
Yep. In the near future, we're going to see the smart buildings coming to life. A lot of things are going to get controlled by things like Alexa and whatever softwares, but your refrigerator, your all that. So we're getting to that. I mean, probably 20 years ago when I was a student, I was reading about these in magazines, like one day things are gonna get controlled by softwares, but I think that time is very close, very soon. I think it's already there, but it's going to be more popular.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, as most people are kind of familiar with like the smart thermostat, right? That's, you can control the temperature of your house from your phone, so you don't even need to be there. But I think there's all kinds of stuff. I've seen designs on ovens where you can through your phone, you can make sure that the oven is off, or you can preheat the oven before you get home.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little bit about that, the advances in technology that you see are happening and that you see maybe coming, that, we should, as a partner, should be aware.
It is coming. Yeah. Your blinds, your refrigerator, your oven, your everything.
Front
the
door.
Temperature. Yeah.
Yeah, the front door, I think you can even control from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the good thing about a lot of these stuff as well is that something like the thermostat, someone who can control it from wherever, it's going to keep the temperature low. So if I'm, as an apartment owner, is paying the utility bills, it depends on the apartments who pays the bills. It depends on the building. But if I'm paying for it and they're able to control that, that's going to be favorable to me, because they're going to maybe control it a little better, and they're going to keep the utility down a lot better.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, and then that we talked a little bit on the technology side, but then how about the layout side of the actual units themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing, what differences are you seeing in that aspect? People wanting higher ceilings, more open floor plans? What is the...
Yeah, definitely the open floor plans, and is more people want openness, want things to look spacious. I don't think we're kind of in the middle for the ceiling height. I don't think people are looking for, because it's going to be expensive for the heating and cooling when you have higher ceiling. I think I've in the 80s I've seen lower ceilings than what's happening now. So I think we're kind of in a very nice spot in terms of ceiling height, but definitely the open concept is popu're.
Yeah, very popular, right?
Yeah.
And then, as an architect, you also designed we were in charge of designing the colors, sort of the walls, what kind of flooring. Yes. You're in charge of that as well.
Yes, unless people want to hire probably a kitchen designer, it's okay. If the complex or the building is so huge and so big, some owners want to hire actually it's a supplier who's have their own stuff, probably it's going to save them money. Sometimes if it's let's say an office building, the architect work with an interior designer who's going to pick furniture, create all the desks and stuff, and work on all that. But it's a coordination job, like they work together. But yeah, as an architect, of course, I do have the ability to design the interior of the building, the colors, even the furniture, appliances, bathroom, kitchen, and all that.
Yeah. Great. And
material, carpet, everything, paint.
Yeah. So maybe what was the first project you ever worked on? Maybe talk about the size of it, where it was, and do you remember? Or maybe if you can't remember.
Schools. I worked on schools.
On schools initially?
Yeah, but I was not the architect. I was the beginning of helping an architect, an apprentice, I'd say.
Okay. Maybe talk about the last project you've been a part of then. Was it a multifamily project?
Yes.
Okay, maybe
50 apartments in Boston.
Okay, that's 50 units.
Yeah, 50 units.
Okay, yeah, maybe tell us about that one. What kind of style it was? What kind of challenges you had? How you came up with the design? I think that would be an interesting story.
Okay, great, sure. Well, in Boston, there's a lot of the challenges you would get is getting approved, but not just by the city, but there's a committee of people who are going to, like, neighbors, and these people get a voice in deciding what comes into the city. So we had to go and convince them that this apartment building is not going to ruin the historic feel of their neighborhood. It's going to benefit the neighborhood, and there's this struggle because a lot of people don't like change. And yeah, that was the biggest challenge. The process is just the same as the process I described, as any project that you start with a concept, you progression into bringing it all engineers to the table and make decisions about.
And that project is finished now, and how did it turn out?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, great. Went great.
Worked out great. Cool. Well, congrats. It sounds like I would love to see some of your projects in person, because for anyone who's listening on, who's watching on the video, what she has on screen is one of your projects, right? And it looks like an absolutely beautiful building with, I love the different levels, yeah, all the greenery as well. I think it makes it feel very
yeah. That will help the air quality. Mm-hmm. Outdoor and indoor help people breathe, help people relax. There's a whole science called biophilia, and that science studies the effect of nature on our brains and our mental health. So the closer to nature we are, the more we open to nature or bring nature inside our homes, the better our that would improve our mental health. Yeah.
Is making me think about, like, again, one of my own properties where I could, simply by just adding some plant pots into the hallways, something very inexpensive, but it would, I think it would add a lot to the hallways and to the tenants. So
yeah. Looking at new building materials, and I found something that's pretty unique. I haven't seen it before. It's real plants, but they're not alive. They're preserved, and they put them on walls. So you'll have a green wall, or like probably an artistic wall. And the material, it's not fake and it's not alive. You just have to, and they're saying it won't collect dust as the plastic ones, the fake ones. And you just have to clean it once a year without soap or anything, just mild water or dusting. And it's very pretty. I wish I can show you. I ordered some samples to show in my.
Do you know the name of it? I'll be interested to research.
It's just a green wall. I can email it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll email it to you.
Okay. Cool. So as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I'm gonna ask. I always like to ask some wrestling themed questions. So first question is, are you ready?
Okay, I'll try my best.
The first question is, what would your wrestling name be? So if you had to come up with a wrestling name for yourself.
Yeah, I asked my husband, and he came up with something. He said Sasha Banks, as Isra Banks. So, but I'm not. But she's, I think, the boss. So that I think the boss would fit me, or the queen. I don't know. Boss, probably boss.
The boss. Okay.
The boss.
Okay, I like that. Now every wrestler has a special move, a signature move that they're known for. So what would your signature move be in real estate? Or
intuition.
Intuition? Yeah, you just have good intuition into.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's something you can't teach, probably, right? It's just something that you've been given. That's very interesting, intuition. Okay. And then what's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your
recessions?
Recessions, yeah. Especially the 2008, 2009. Yeah, nobody's building then, I guess. So there's no work. Did you have to do anything differently?
I had to travel to Abu Dhabi.
Oh, that's when you traveled to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
I think the recession it didn't exist there.
Yeah. It was, well, it did, but not as bad as it was here. They were still building.
Okay, oh, that's interesting. Well, I think they have a lot more money there, I think, right?
Yeah.
Right. So was there a point, you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were scared? What was it and how did you come it? So was there a point that you doubted yourself maybe, or you were scared to do something in a project or do some kind of business move?
Well, I always wanted to have my own business, but the obstacle is going out, meeting with people, and being an introvert. As like, what if it didn't work? What if, and I had just to go through it. So probably this is my third interview now. And I'm just doing it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
I think nobody would think you're an introvert. You're a great speaker, and you've got a great personality as well. So
teaching helped a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about, before we go, talk a little bit about, so you're you teach at the Boston College?
Boston Architectural College. Yeah.
Oh. And how long have you been doing that? So you do that as well?
4 years. 4 years.
So you do that as well as designing projects and
Yes.
running your own business?
Yes, and it's an amazing energy. It's in normal days, the school works at night. I mean, all students, they're expected to morning jobs, and they come at night. They're most of my students are master's students, and yeah, and the energy, the youth and energy and the ideas they have and the ambition, all that passion, I would pay to teach.
That's great. I'm very happy that you do that.
Yeah, I'm so fortunate to do that job.
Well, I'm sure they're fortunate to have you as their teacher as well. So that's great. Well, thank you so much for giving up your time to be here today and talking a lot about what you do as an architect. I think it's been very eye-opening I know for me, for sure, and for a lot of people, to kind of get that different perspective of what you have to do and what considerations you put into it. So I think, anyone who's looking to develop land, to be a developer, or to even just to build their own single family home, I think it's very eye-opening to hear your side of things.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been great. Thank you.
So if for anyone, before we go, who wants to get in touch with you if anyone who wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
My email.
Okay.
Yeah, my website is just Google Trivek Architects. You can reach me.
Okay.
Phone number. You can find my phone number, my email, anything.
Okay, and I'll put the link to that in the description below so that someone can click on that and find it. So yeah. Well, thank you once again. This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's been really interesting to me, and something you don't hear that often as a real estate investor is the architectural side of things. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you. You too. Enjoy your weekend.